I've asked this question before. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with one Mike Lubie Lubitz, who is also mystified as to what happened last night. Adam Silver, have you no shame? Have you no shame? It was one thing to rig the Philadelphia series and have the officials stacked against the Philadelphia 76ers in an effort to promote the New York Knicks and put them further into the spotlight. It was another thing to steal 2 games from the Indiana Pacers with, again, Fugazi officiating, Tim Donaghy-esque, and have the Indiana Pacers go down to the New York Knicks 2-0, only to see them come back and win the series in spite of you, Adam Silver. And then there was last night, a 23-4 discrepancy in an overtime game. The Indiana Pacers were driving the basketball to the hoop, even though they love to hoist it from the outside and the perimeter. They were taking it to the basket, and somehow the Boston Celtics were only guilty of enough fouls to put the Indiana Pacers on the stripe 4 times, 4 free throws.
Including overtime, it ended up being 30-10. But I just love that they showed when they got to the line with 3 minutes left, they're like, this is their first free throw since the 6-minute mark of the first quarter.
It was their first free throw since the in-season tournament. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Did this just illustrate the point that Rick Carlisle was largely harpooned for and lambasted for, that the small market teams have no shot? My God, you couldn't do anything more to protect the interests of the Boston Celtics in that game. We'll get to that. If you were betting the game, and I have a betting story on this game, BetOnline is your #1 source for the NBA and NHL playoffs. Of course, the NHL conference finals get underway tonight in the Eastern Conference with the Rangers and the Panthers. Very intriguing series. Every seat, every matchup, and even every live odd that you could possibly seek out while the games are being played, you can get online at BetOnline and make those wagers. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot machines.
Nice.
My wife, the Mustang's all over that. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV, all caps, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's nice. You drop in 10 times, you get 5. Bet online. The game starts here. Where do we begin with this ball game? All right, I have a story for you. I have a friend that doesn't bet very often. He used to be a big-time sports bettor, and his real addiction, believe it or not, was the jugheads. Come on, Abatello, let that horse go. He was betting the Trotters at Plain Ridge, where he was infatuated and friends with a driver named Zuki Zuckerman. Zuki Zuckerman. So imagine you're trying to make a profit betting Zuki Zuckerman horses that are routinely running last. And so he came into a little bit of money, somehow found some lost inheritance in Nigeria, and he started to make some wagers on the NBA playoffs. He's only made 2 so far, and they were both winning ones. During the Indiana-New York Knicks series, he had 2 $500 wagers. He hit them both. One on the Knicks in one game that they won, and one on the Pacers in a game that they won. And so he's up $1,000. And he calls me last night before this game. He says, you know what I'm going to do, DeForest? You know what I'm going to do? Screw the points. Fuck the points. I'm taking the Pacers on the money line. Money line. And he was amazed that he was getting 3.5 to 1, which I think is about the correlation there. There's a parallel between the point spread and, of course, the money line if you decide to go ahead and abdicate the points and not take them. And sure enough, he has them on the money line. They're down 12-0. I almost sent them the fatal text, Louis. It's over. They fight back. They tie the game up at halftime. It's like 64 all. And with 10 seconds to go in the game, they're up 3 with the fucking ball.
Yes.
Not under the basket for some difficult inbounds play, but with the entire court at their disposal, at their discretion to throw the ball virtually anywhere. So the first cutter gets wide open, and the guy that's inbounding the ball just stands there with it. Second cutter gets wide open. The guy with the ball out of bounds just stands there, and all of a sudden you're thinking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As if you were Dave Brubeck counting Joe Morello into the drum solo in take 5, right? In 5-4 time. So as the time is about to expire on the 5-second violation, inbound comes the ball, and boom, right out of bounds. And now the Celtics have it. So what would you think, Lubie? What would be the strategy? Wouldn't you foul the guy and send him to the line for 2?
Yes.
Or the Celtics now would have to make the first free throw, brick a second one, and then somehow scramble for it, and they're still down 2 points. Would that not be your strategy? You don't see every coach go for that, although it seems so logical, so practical, doesn't it? Why would you want to defend and take a shot on a lucky fucking ass 3-point shot going in from the corner while well covered by Jaylen Brown?
I mean, I didn't understand. First of all, did they not have timeouts left? Like, why were you forcing that pass in? That was just weird. Then on top of that, why are you letting them get? Look, you can't defend them without it being a foul. Literally, at the end of regulation, I think there were 6 straight possessions that Boston Celtics had that were all fouls. So I understand that part where if you watch it, it actually is not difficult of a shot. He's wide fucking open. The defender literally puts his arms behind his back and
Siakam,
just to show I'm not fouling him. I promise. And Brown gets a wide open look and makes the fucking shot. I would have fouled the shit out of him. I would have fouled the minute they caught the ball inbounds, because then if you do it too early, then they give them free throws on the ball too, and you can't do that. So the minute they caught the ball, I would have fouled. Minute they caught the foul, I would have fouled. Look, maybe there's 8 seconds left and they can get the ball back in a similar situation, but I'd rather force that than have 10 seconds and chance at a 3 to tie. I was wondering why it looked like he wanted to foul and then he did it too late. And he's like, fuck, if I foul him now, he'll get an and 1. So screw it. Let me just show them I'm not fouling. And then Brown got a clean look and once he shot it, you knew he was making it after.
Of course that was going in, even if it hit the backboard. Look, somehow the ghost of Bill Russell would have tapped that ball in. It could have bounced off the Red Auerbach statue outside the arena there, and it still would have gone into the basket. There was still almost 6 seconds left, and of course, Indiana executes or fails to execute any kind of play. That was one of the ugliest late possessions I've ever seen under those circumstances. Plus, that inbound atrocity followed a series of just weak turnovers by the Indiana Pacers when they had multiple shots to ice the game. So, of course, they were going to go down in overtime. And my buddy who had the money line bet, of course, phone rings immediately after the game. I didn't answer it, Lubie. Is it cruel? Is that like not answering somebody who's calling a suicide hotline when a guy calls you in a psychotic mood? I could smell the psychosis coming through the phone, even though I didn't even pick it up. What was that wrong of me, Lubie, not to console the guy by saying, yeah, you got screwed, man. You got fucking, you believe that? 23-4 free throws in the regulation time. That was sure ugly. So the Boston Celtics, who it seems that there may be an agenda to put either that New York or Boston team into the final round. Adam Silver, we want you held accountable. Never mind Trump being on trial. Adam Silver should be on trial. In New York. Where's this guy Bragg, the district attorney on that? Huh? Hey, get Lieutenant Bragg, Lieutenant Dragg out there from the old Perry Mason thing and investigate that. But anyway, up 3 points with 10 seconds to go.
Yeah, you should win the game.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you have no reason to cry. You just absolutely screwed that thing up. Yeah. So 1-0 Boston in that one. The Timberwolves get on their way tonight. They're 4.5-point favorites. I think yesterday I said that the Dallas Mavericks were favored in the series. That was a misread. How could that be possible that they would be favored in the series when they're underdogs by 4.5 points in the opening game, and 4 of the potential 7 games are going to be held in Minnesota, where Dallas would be an underdog? It makes no sense. It was incongruent with anything that I knew about odds. Holy Billy Walters, what are we talking about here? And sure enough, it is the Timberwolves that are favored in the series. So, and I think they're going to win the series, because I also think they're going to be a very imposing. I know that all of the Boston starters can shoot the 3, and they have other guys that come in off the bench and can shoot 3-pointers. They were the best 3-point shooting team in the league, the Boston Celtics. So it stands to reason, if they get to that point where it's Minnesota and Boston, that they're going to spend some time, significant amount of time around the 3-point stripe. But if they do try to get inside, which they do frequently, and they have many guys that convert at the basket, Tatum, Brown, they'll take it to the basket. Horford was tough inside last night, even though he just likes to stand by the Coke machine and catch and shoot threes. And yet, I think when they run into Minnesota, it's going to be a different story. If they do, if Minnesota beats Dallas, it'll be a different story than it was against Indiana, where the paint virtually was the Red Sea. Why don't they just paint the painted area red and label it the Red Sea? Because no interior defense whatsoever by the Indiana Pacers in that game. Cats and the Rangers getting underway tonight in the National Hockey League. Very excited about that. Of course, we originate here in South Florida. For those of you not familiar with Lubie and me, we are from South Florida. We've been following the Panthers since their inception, going back to the 93-94 season. They had that great run in 96-97 when they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. They ran into a juggernaut in the Colorado Avalanche, and Patrick Waugh You know what? For years after that series, I actually thought Patrick Roy's real name was that fucking frog. That's all anybody ever called him here in South Florida. So I could bring up Patrick Roy and I go, that fucking frog. Which is an unflattering reference to Canadian people who inundate the area here during the wintertime. Hey, you got to move that car, Jack, or what? And then you see the Canadian plates and you realize this is a futile endeavor. I mean, I'll never be able to reason with this guy. And he probably just left a 10-cent tip in that restaurant. There I go, condemning all of Canada. Oh, Canada. But this is an all-American series, and it's a beauty because it's almost like a Subway series of sorts.
Yes.
Is it not?
Yes.
You have so many people that have been displaced or, have left New York, come to South Florida, or spend half of the year here when the weather's really nice. And now you have a Rangers-Panthers series. Many Ranger fans have converted to an affection and affinity for the Florida Panthers organization, people that like hockey. And yet now that it's Rangers-Panthers, they go right back to their roots, don't they? Hey, Lo, who you rooting for? Right? Have a knish, have a Sabret hot dog. And a lot of people are going to be on board with the Rangers in this one. Slight favorites, the Panthers in the series. And slight favorites tonight to win the game on the road against the New York Rangers. This is interesting because in New York, the expectations are very Dickens-esque. There are great expectations in New York. I was looking through the many pages of coverage that are available in the New York Post sports section, about 7-8 pages on this series, one of which features their 4 reporters that cover the Rangers on a regular basis, predicting the series. And guess what? It's a unanimous decision. All 4 have the Rangers winning, Lubie. Yes. All 4. 6 and 7 games, mostly 7.
That's great.
What say you, Mike Lubie Lubitz? Should we go on a record here with another losing pick? Because I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and then it seems like we're dead wrong about everything except the Preakness. But I mentioned this several weeks ago as we were watching the Bruins series unfold with the Panthers, that they seemed to be playing at a level that was worthy of coming back, redeeming themselves in the Stanley Cup Finals and winning the Cup. I think they're a better team this year than they were last year.
They are.
As reflected in the regular season performance, but nonetheless, in the playoffs, very much the same. What say you, Mike Lubie Lubitz? Are you leaning towards, if it's Panthers in 7, then they have to win that last game at the Garden in New York? What do you think?
I think it's Panthers in 7. I know going and winning on the road in sports is supposed to be tough, but for some reason, this team the last couple of years does it well. They actually play better on the road in the big games than they do at home. They, I think, lost 3 at home versus the Bruins, won 1 at home, and won 3 on the road, including game 6 in TD Garden. That's supposed to be a tough place to play. It's supposed to be scary, all these things. They were right there the entire game, got a miraculous goal after Swayman had played his heart out and ended that series in Boston. I don't see why they couldn't do it in New York. I love it. The Rangers get by on guts and grit and grizzle, and that's fine, and it can work in hockey. The Panthers are the better team. The Panthers are better at every even goalie, which a lot of people would have leaned Chesterkin into the playoffs. No one's playing better than Bob. I mean, yes, Swayman made a lot of great saves. He wasn't getting attacked a lot. A lot of the time, the shots that Swayman were facing was a lot of bullshit. Like, Bob's getting barraged a lot of the time with ridiculous shots, and he's playing out of his fucking mind. And I can't stand the guy. I've been as much against Sergei Bobrovsky as anyone. But if you're watching him play goalie right now, there's no one playing better. I mean, Chesterkin, I know, is really good, but he has a few periods where he just lost his shit. Bobrovsky never did that. Game 1, they allowed a lot of goals, but a lot of it was bullshit. A lot of it was his defense let him fucking down. There's a 1 goal that to this day, I think they fucking blocked him out. After that game, he, in both the Lightning and the Boston series, played out of his mind. I mean, the Panthers on paper are better at every facet, including their coach. I mean, Maurice has done a hell of a job with this group. To me, the Rangers could win, but to openly pick them, I love it.
Well, by the narrowest of margins. I mean, they're talking about Rangers in 7 winning a game at home to ice the series. So it wasn't an overwhelming endorsement, but nonetheless, 4 out of 4. I picked the Rangers in the series. A good reason, if you could book the media's action, to go against them. So the New York people, very high on the New York Rangers' chances in this series. Of course, in Florida here, everybody's thinking the Panthers are going to win the Stanley Cup finally, and that we'll be drinking margaritas out of the Stanley Cup sometime in mid-July. That'll be great. All right, a couple of notes here. Just on that officiating, there was a seance last night with Mendy Rudolph. And he wanted to apologize on behalf of the league for what's going on in the Eastern Conference and the screw job of the Indiana Pacers. Even Dick Bavetta was casting a little bit of a fisheye at the way the officiating was going. And a retirement note, Takeru Kobayashi, can you believe it? The esteemed and acclaimed professional eater. He had dominated the Nathan's hot dog eating contest on Coney Island for many years before Joey Chestnut came along and ate him right out of business. It got to the point where Kobayashi couldn't even look at a plate of tofu and consider downing it. Never mind eating 55 hot dogs on Coney Island on a 100-degree day to celebrate America's independence. That wasn't happening anymore. And believe it or not, he said this. He was reduced to being like a busboy in Woe Hops. I mean, it was ugly how he had gone from the pinnacle of success, the absolute ultimate when it came to professional eating and contest entrance. And all of a sudden, he was washed up. He was a has-been, and he decided to retire. And you know what the reason was that he gave for his retirement?
What?
He'd lost his appetite for large meals.
Oh, that's great.
Takeru Kobayashi, best of luck in whatever you do. He was making about $600,000 a year. This is 20 years ago when the eating craze just kind of exploded onto the scene there. So you got to figure Chestnut's doing pretty well. But we had Chestnut on an interview, and he said that he had driven the competitive desire right out of Kobayashi, that he didn't know how to handle adversity. It sounded like he was talking about, some rookie in the NFL. Nah, he doesn't know how to handle adversity. But I guess it even applies to any level of competition. All right, we have to get out of here. Good luck, everybody. Timberwolves tonight going against the Dallas Mavericks. So we'll be following that for you. And, of course, great interest on the ice, ladies and gentlemen, as the Panthers and the Rangers get underway in what figures to be, as our good friend Al Bernstein used to always say when two scrubs were meeting in the prelims that you'd never heard of before, this is a really intriguing matchup. And it is. All right, for Mike Lubie, you guys have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in here at Caffeine TV and all of the other outlets, Believe and NoFilter.net, to today's edition of the Morning Briefing.